History is often a sanitized version of the truth, neatly filed in official reports and dusty manuals. The real story of survival, the life-or-death reality faced by soldiers in the Second World War, is found in the shadows. It is a history written in contraband, spoken in whispers, and hidden in the seams of a uniform. At Atten Recounts, we delve into that shadow history, exposing truths that were too controversial, too taboo, or too inconvenient for the official narrative. If you believe history's greatest lessons are found in its darkest corners, subscribe and join us on this journey. We uncover the unauthorized items that soldiers relied on, items that were banned, discouraged, or never mentioned in basic training. These are not the standard issue tools of war, they are the forbidden secrets of survival. From scavenged enemy weapons to black market medical supplies, soldiers learned that to stay alive, they often had to break the rules. Their ingenuity and willingness to adapt and use whatever they could find offer a powerful lesson for any modern survivalist. The reality of the front line was a desperate scramble, where survival depended not just on following orders, but on cleverness, opportunism, and a disregard for regulations. Today, we are unearthing 5 forbidden items that soldiers hid from history, each one a testament to the human will to endure against all odds. These are the untold stories of the gear that kept them alive when the rulebook was thrown into the fire. In the mud-choked hell of the European theater or the humid jungles of the Pacific, a soldier's rifle was his lifeline. If it failed, he was as good as dead. The greatest enemy to that rifle wasn't always the man on the other side of the battlefield. It was the environment itself. Rain, mud, and river crossings could clog a barrel with debris, rendering it useless at the critical moment. Official solutions like canvas muzzle covers were often cumbersome, easily lost, or not available when needed most. The men on the ground needed something better, immediate and disposable. They turned to one of the most taboo items in their kit, the condom. These were issued for disease prevention during leave, but their true value on the front line was different. A simple latex sheath stretched over the muzzle of a rifle created a perfect waterproof seal. It kept the barrel clean and dry, ready for action. When it was time to fire, the soldier didn't need to remove it. The bullet tore through the latex without affecting accuracy or velocity. It was an ingenious, unspoken piece of fieldcraft. This practice was never mentioned in training manuals. It was soldier-to-soldier knowledge, passed down in hushed tones. Imagine a young lieutenant fresh from officer training, seeing his sergeant stretching a condom over his rifle barrel. It must have been a jarring sight, a clear violation of protocol and propriety. In the brutal calculus of war, what mattered was what worked. The condom was cheap, lightweight, and effective. It was the perfect example of a soldier looking at an object not for what it was, but for what it could do. For the modern survivalist, the lesson is profound. Don't be constrained by the label on the box. Every item in your pack has material properties that can be exploited in unconventional ways. A plastic bag is not just a bag. It's a water collector, a signaling device, a pressure bandage. A condom is not just a contraceptive. It's a fire starter when filled with water to create a lens, a water carrier holding up to a liter, or a waterproof container for tinder and matches. True preparedness is about seeing the hidden potential in everything you carry. In the chaos of a firefight, sound is everything. Soldiers learned to distinguish the sharp crack of their own M1 Garand from the buzzing rip of a German MG42. Acoustic battlefield awareness was a matter of life and death. Using an enemy weapon was one of the gravest sins a soldier could commit. The distinct sound of a German gun firing from your position could draw friendly fire, resulting in death from your own side. Carrying enemy weapons was often punishable by court-martial. It was the sound of treason. Despite the danger, many Allied soldiers coveted the German MP40 submachine gun. Compared to the American M3 grease gun, the MP40 was seen as superior. It was reliable, accurate, and its higher rate of fire was an advantage in close-quarters combat. Soldiers who had seen their own weapon fail were tempted to pick up a fallen enemy's MP40. They took the risk. These soldiers were pragmatists. They understood the danger of friendly fire but weighed it against the immediate threat of the enemy. A soldier with a scavenged MP40 often operated on the flanks, away from the main unit, to avoid being misidentified. They hoarded captured German ammunition, creating a personal logistics chain. It was a dangerous choice, a secret between the soldier and his weapon. This was not about glory, it was a calculation of survival. Sometimes standard equipment is not enough. Survival can require breaking protocol and using a superior tool, even with added risks. For a survivalist today, this could mean carrying a non-standard tool or learning an unconventional skill. It's about knowing when the official way is no longer best and having the courage to trust your judgment when your life is at stake. The best tool is the one that keeps you alive. The Second World War was a conflict defined by exhaustion. Soldiers were pushed to the limits of human endurance, forced to stay awake for days during combat operations, bombing runs or night patrols. Sleep deprivation was often as dangerous as any machine gun nest. A lapse in concentration could get your squad killed. The military knew this and had a solution, but its use was a closely guarded secret. That solution was Benzedrine, known as pep pills or wakey-wakey. Benzedrine is an amphetamine. It floods the brain with adrenaline, eliminates fatigue, and creates alertness and euphoria. Its use was officially sanctioned for elite units like air crews and commandos, but it spread through unofficial channels. Medics might give pills before a long watch, or men would trade for them on a black market. For many, Benzedrine became a hidden part of their combat loadout. The use of these stimulants was a double-edged sword. They kept men on their feet, but came at a tremendous cost. Soldiers on Benzedrine often became jittery, irritable, and prone to poor judgment. The high was followed by a brutal crash, leaving them more exhausted. Long-term use led to addiction and psychological damage that followed men home from the war. The superhuman feats of soldiers were often fueled by a dangerous chemical crutch, far from the heroic propaganda. This chapter of history warns about managing fatigue in any survival scenario. The temptation to use a shortcut and push past your limits with chemicals can be immense. As WWII soldiers learned, there is always a price to pay. True survival is about disciplined energy management. It means understanding your body's rhythms, practicing proper rest, and knowing when to push and when to recover. Ignoring your body's need for rest is a debt that will always come due, often at the worst moment. For an Allied airman shot down over occupied Europe or a commando operating deep behind enemy lines, capture was a constant terrifying possibility. If taken prisoner, their mission was to escape. Standard paper maps were impractical. They were noisy to unfold, easily destroyed by water, and immediately confiscated during a search. The solution came from MI9, the British Directorate of Military Intelligence, and it was a masterpiece of concealment and ingenuity, the Silk Map. These maps, printed on whisper-thin sheets of silk or rayon, were the ultimate escape tool. They were durable, waterproof, and utterly silent. Most importantly, they could be hidden in plain sight. MI9 developed countless ingenious methods of smuggling them to soldiers and prisoners of war. Maps were concealed inside the hollowed-out heels of boots, sewn into the lining of uniforms, or hidden within the packaging of seemingly innocent items sent by aid organizations. A chess piece or a playing card could contain the key to freedom. Even a tube of toothpaste could hide a map. One of the most famous methods was hiding maps inside Monopoly board games sent to POW camps. The games were distributed by fake charities created by MI9. Specific tokens in the game sets, like a small metal file, were included, along with real currency hidden among the game's paper money. A tiny dot on the free parking space signaled to prisoners that this particular game was loaded with escape aids. A children's board game became a lifeline, and every move was a step closer to home. The principle of the Silk Map teaches the importance of redundancy and concealment in navigation tools. Never rely on a single point of failure. A GPS can lose signal or run out of batteries. A paper map can be ruined by a fall into a river. The modern survivalist should learn from MI9. Have a primary map, a laminated backup, and a small durable map, made of Tyvek or another modern equivalent of silk, tucked away in a jacket lining or boot sole. Your ability to navigate out of a bad situation should never depend on one vulnerable item. In the brutal reality of combat, a serious wound was often a death sentence. Medics were courageous and skilled, but they couldn't be everywhere at once. A soldier could bleed out in minutes before help arrived. The standard issue first aid kit was basic, often containing only a simple dressing and sulfur powder. For pain, there was a single item, the morphine syringe. This was a small, collapsible tube with an attached needle containing a single dose to dull the agony of a catastrophic injury. Official military doctrine stated morphine was to be administered only by a medic or to a wounded comrade. Soldiers were forbidden from carrying or using it on themselves. The syringe of a fallen soldier was to be left with the body or turned over to medical personnel. The men on the front lines knew the grim reality. They knew their own life might depend on having morphine immediately available. They broke the rules. They began to hoard morphine, creating a personal forbidden trauma kit. This practice was called collecting a dead man's ration. Soldiers took syringes from fallen comrades, hiding them in a pocket or taping them to their dog tags. It was a grim acknowledgement of their own mortality. If hit and alone in a shell crater, that stolen dose of morphine could keep them from going into shock and give them the strength to hold on until help arrived. It was a violation of regulations born from the necessity of self-preservation. The lesson is stark and unequivocal. Your personal safety is your own responsibility. A group medic is essential, but you cannot rely solely on others for your own first aid. Every modern survivalist should carry a robust, personalized individual first aid kit, or IFAK, and have the training to use it. This is about having the tools to stop massive bleeding, manage airways, and control extreme pain within legal civilian limits. The soldiers of WWII learned that the only medical care you can be certain of is the care you are prepared to give yourself. The story of these 5 forbidden items reveals a fundamental truth about the Second World War. True survival was not about following the rules to the letter, it was about knowing when to break them. It was a testament to human ingenuity in the face of unimaginable horror. The soldiers who waterproofed their rifles with condoms, who risked friendly fire for a better weapon, or who hoarded a dead man's morphine weren't rebels or criminals. They were survivors, adapting and overcoming, with the tools the official manuals ignored. They were the ones who made it home. This shadow history is filled with lessons that are just as relevant today as they were 80 years ago. It teaches us to be adaptable, to think outside the box, and to take responsibility for our own survival. If you found this glimpse into the unwritten history of WWII compelling, please subscribe to Aten Recounts and share this video with someone who needs to see it. There are countless more stories buried in the past, waiting to be uncovered, and we need your support to bring them to light. Ultimately, history is not just a collection of dates and facts, it is a guidebook for the future. By studying the desperate measures taken by those who came before us, we learn how to be more resilient, more prepared, and more resourceful. Keep questioning the official story, keep digging deeper, and keep learning from the past. Because the lessons learned in the trenches and foxholes of the Second World War might just be the ones that help you endure the challenges of tomorrow. Stay safe and stay prepared.